put it in your network card or something.
Okay, we're going live, guys. I think we're live already. I'll just give it a minute to spin up here, and then we'll do a round of introductions, and we'll get to the agenda.
As soon as we went live, my camera just messed with me.
Oh, no. I can see you fine, but...
Oh, it just jumped. The exposure jumped up.
Okay. YouTube live. I'm putting the YouTube live link into the Telegram channel. And appreciate it if you guys can help me monitor comments in the YouTube, and then the Telegram should pop up.
And let me share this out.
Nice. Yeah, you guys go ahead and do your thing. Welcome everybody who is attending, watching this recording later, or watching the live. This is the Permissionless Software Foundation Technical Steering Committee meeting. It's May 25th, 2022. I will share out a link to the agenda in the Telegram channel again, just so everybody has it. And let's go ahead and do a round of introductions. I will start. I'm Chris Troutner. I founded the Permissionless Software Foundation with some of these lovely gentlemen here. And I maintain fullstack.cash, which is infrastructure as a service. And I'm the head janitor. Love that title. Aaron Shoemaker, why don't you go ahead and do an introduction?
My name's Aaron Shoemaker. I work with the token stuff. We're following code. We made a mutable token last Friday. I don't know if you got to watch that, Chris. And then
I didn't. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, and then right now working on developing IPFS cluster network, decentralized pinning, so that people can join and run nodes and hopefully gain SLP tokens as a way to pin to clusters. So we want to utilize the PSF technology to do that.
Nice. Sam, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sam, I am a PSF contributor, and I've been playing with smart contracts this week, so
nice.
Hope to talk about that later.
Nice. Aaron Cool Cleaner, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, Aaron here. Big fan of PSF and all the work that you guys have done. Do I sound like a chipmunk?
No, your sound sounds great today.
I saw some laughter, so I'm like, and I'm glad to be a part of this. Good work, everybody. Chris, the amount of work you've done recently on putting together like strategies on this is amazing. So thanks for everything you're doing.
Appreciate it. Yeah, go ahead, David Dallin. Oh, you're on. Yeah, there you go.
Only I could just stop my clock. Here we go.
Yeah, there you go. Now we can hear you.
In a bit of time. I am a supporter of the Permissionless Software Foundation since the early days. And lately I've been spending most of my time in 3D land with my Oculus, which I'm wearing, and also exploring DAOs, this whole notion of people working together in unrestricted space. And it's kind of interesting. There's pros and cons on all sides of it, but it all seems to apply to the work we've been doing or been watching going on in the crypto space with software development. So it's all pretty interesting, and I'm happy to be here today.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate your participation in the Telegram channel talking about DAOs. That's really helped clarify my thinking. Stoyan, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Stoyan Jekov. I worked before on some of the JavaScript libraries. Recently, we are just butchering the tools created by Chris. And you definitely need to watch the video because we stole online some of your BSH. Like, I don't know, like 10 cents or something.
Good.
Yeah, we'll pay you back.
Yeah, right on. Hey, man, if there's a bug, exploit it. Yeah, I couldn't watch because I was in a forest in a remote part of Eastern Oregon, and so yeah, I was bummed to miss that. But now that I'm
Wait,
back to
no-
civilization, I can rewatch it.
They don't have any Wi-Fi trees up there yet.
No, but I just got Starlink, so next time I go up there, I'll be rocking. All right. Well, with that, I will share the agenda, and we can get started on that. Okay, so just a little housekeeping reminder that I do every time. We've got we file our agendas on GitHub under the Permissionless Software Foundation GitHub group in a repository called TSC for Technical Steering Committee. We file them as issues, and we post the links to the Zoom meetings and to the YouTube channel and the time when we have them. The scope of the meeting covers this basically everything that is documented in cachestack.info, the website. That's what's considered the core PSF software. And so the agenda's a little light today, but the items are heavy. So what I want to do, there's a bunch of NFT stuff I want to get to, but before we get to that, I really want to review this psfoundation.info site. So as I mentioned, I was in this remote area for the last week with no internet, so I had a lot of time to think. And I reread Working in Public by Nadia Ekbal for like the third time, and managed to get enough of a connection to get a little bit of dialogue with some of you guys, and just really thinking about the architecture of the PSF and the goals of the PSF and the mission and the money. How are we going to make some money? And so what I want to do is just go through these pages, and I want you guys to interrupt me anytime you have a comment, and we'll talk about it, because what I really want to get is your feedback, and so that's why I want to spend some time. So so I'll just start going through it. So that the first page just is an introduction to it and links to the cache stack, which from a technical side, so the cachestack.info is more about the technical explanation, and then psfoundation.info is going to replace the old business plan. It's more of a high level, like, what is the PSF about? And because you guys are the PSF, we are all the PSF. That's why I'm very interested in your input. Certainly, I want to hear if any of this does not resonate with you. So the mission hasn't changed. The mission stayed the same. Our mission is to, in fact, I'm going to make this a little bigger. The mission is to help individuals protect their privacy, circumvent censorship, and engage in economic activity. So all the software we create is in service of that mission. And just a little thing, if you guys find something that you don't like how it's worded, or you just want to contribute to it, all the pages have this edit this page button. It's just a pull request in GitHub to make an edit.
Should you is it really required to, to specify the blockchain we're working on? I think this is more like what we do. So maybe it's not so required to have like specific blockchains. Like we will do everything everywhere, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I think what I'm trying to do is find a balance between openness and efficacy. So I tend to focus on Bitcoin Cash because it's what I know, and then eCash. But I'm trying to mitigate this platform risk of putting all your eggs in one blockchain, and so because eCash is so similar to Bitcoin Cash, and the code requires such little changes to jump back and forth, that scratches my itch there in terms of building business applications that are not dependent on any one blockchain. And then Avalanche is sort of like, it's interesting because it's got, the EVM as well as the UTXO chains. But yeah, I'm not trying to emphasize that we only focus, that we exclude other blockchains, but I want to, for people who are trying to understand what we're all about, I want to kind of emphasize that, yeah, most of our software works on Bitcoin Cash, and then, eCash is a second. I don't know. What do you think about that? Or how should we approach that?
Oh, it's okay, but I mean, we will maybe soon start using smart BCH because it's BCH, but for contracts. So every time you will need to not you, but somebody to edit this page. So if we just leave it like more open, maybe it will be not so much need for editing.
You
Okay.
could specify later in the document.
Mhm.
So like he's saying, you could have it both ways. So you at the top, you just leave it open, but down in the document, if somebody really wants to read in there, they can go, okay, these are the three main changes right now. And, you know, or maybe it's a different page. I don't know. So I understand both ways.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, to me, having a part of the mission statement seems like maybe it's a little too heavy on it, but
Mhm.
having it saying, but if you don't say what you're focused on at all, then it seems just really lax. It seems like maybe just including it somewhere else might be better. I think it's good to have it, but Stoyan, there's a good point. BCH or Smart BCH is another one that would be nice to at least consider, since especially the stuff that you've done to show how amazing some of this stuff is.
I've been thinking like who is maybe the general target, like as if we were to view somebody like as a potential customer, like the in the beginning it says to help individuals, but it's sort of a broad term. So maybe if we couldn't like narrow down like a specific use case, like, you know, we help businesses, you know, do such and such.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a good point, and it's talked about in one of these other sections. So I want to revisit your thought there, Sam.
I think mission is more like, how to say, more like a philosophy than like specifics. So maybe here will be better to be, we want to create, how to say, decentralized permissionless software, like to, how to say, to help people with their free like expression or something. It's maybe better than like we will use IPFS, because tomorrow IPFS can be dead, or I don't know, like, so
Better
like
not be.
mission we want to, how to see, help freedom or something. This is the mission. And
Yeah,
details are more like, I don't know, technical details.
okay, yeah, that's a really good point, because that kind of stems in with Sam's. Is there's definitely a business focus here, and maybe that needs to be emphasized in the mission, and the specific technology needs to not be so emphasized. This is good feedback. Well,
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm kind of in agreement with that, where I see a lot of this technology being applied. And part of the reason I'm trying to stand up when I'm standing up and eventually going to stand up on a node and everything is because I do see a lot of business use cases and getting that stuff in place, and then being able to go out to small businesses and saying, hey, here's a new way to do your rewards program, or here's a new way to do pre-sales. Here are business use cases in which it costs you very little and you get a high return from it, and it benefits the local economy in a lot of ways.
okay, yeah, I love that. Oh, Jerry's coming in. I'm going to let him in here, and we'll hopefully he can just pick up. So I just jumped down to this open source page because I hear what you guys are saying, and I'd also like to get your feedback on this section, because it sounds like maybe this needs to tie back into the mission. This is something that I've sort of felt for a long time, but I don't know how good of a job I've done actually communicating it. Is I don't look at the PSF as creating software for end users. I look at us as creating infrastructure that is then used by businesses and entrepreneurs to then build software for end users. So there's a middle piece there, which is really where you as individuals come in. And so I think this sort of ties back to what you guys were saying about the mission of, you know, let's focus less on the technology and more on you know, what are we doing, like the business. I think this describes a little more like what we're doing is building infrastructure that then to inspire developers and inspire entrepreneurs, inspire businesses that then take that sort of rough Lego block, polish it off to create a profitable and a pleasant user experience. So that's really been my focus. What do you guys think about that? How should we communicate that, or should we include it in the mission? And if so, how should we communicate that?
I think if we could tell a story, about somebody who came into the Permissionless Software Foundation and kind of like how Aaron is using it for his 3D stuff, I think that would be a sort of like a testimonial, maybe in a way, but something along those lines where, I think people could relate to a story.
Mm-hmm. Stories are important.
Yeah.
Maybe this page can be some kind, merge with the introduction, because this is our statement, right? We want to do open source software. So this can be some kind like move to the introduction page, and on the software page, maybe we can specify the technical details, maybe like we are concentrating on these blockchains. All of our software is free, open source, everything. So we can specify the details about the technicalities there. But this is great, I think, introduction. I think it's saying everything about what we want to do. So maybe it's better to be on more first place.
Okay.
Yeah, personal opinion. It's not I don't know.
No, this is exactly the kind of feedback I want to get, man. This is gold for me. This is great. And I agree. Yeah. This is probably, rather than being at the end of the website, it should probably be at the beginning of the website. So that's great. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go back up to the tokenomics. I put this as number 2 because I know a lot of people are going to fixate on this thing. And at the end of the day, I don't really view the token. I view the token as being more of a tool than a focal point. It just links to the PSF token, where you can sort of see how many are in circulation. Discusses the minting council, which is a work in progress right now, but essentially the minting council is going to hold the minting baton and be in control of bringing new tokens into existence, and in the governance, I'll sort of talk about the how and the why and the when with that. And then it also mentions that we are planning to create a PSF token on the eCash chain and build a bridge. And there's more details about that later on too. And then the token liquidity peg section here is very hand wavy, because I figure if somebody wants the nitty gritty details, they can go into the token liquidity app. But also, as I've mentioned before, I really would like to phase out the token liquidity app somewhat. Not really, but optically, I'd like to phase it out. I'd like to phase it out from it being a central thing that's controlled, by one person, to something that's controlled by the minting council and is more decentralized.
Would that mean that the token liquidity app would also have a multi-sig functionality to it eventually?
Yeah. So what I envision is we'd essentially the token liquidity app would move to be an extension of the DEX. So the token you would buy and sell primarily through the DEX, and then we'd have a chat bot to make a much more easier user interface. But at some point that has to be centralized. Like there has to be a wallet on a computer controlled by one or more people. And so I'm starting to, I don't know, maybe I should start with the governance section. Let's start with the governance section and we'll come back.
Hey Chris, I just wanted to jump in here, but
hey Jerry.
Have you looked at using a cache script and their locking mechanism for the transaction outputs as part of it? Because with those, you can basically ensure that this address will only produce certain outputs that you're expecting.
I was going to bring it up to cache script. I've been playing with it this last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I would like to hear more about how you guys would envision that being integrated here. I mean, I understand the idea of locking scripts uh, and yeah, I'd just like to hear more about that. Let's I mean, if you guys think that applies to something very specific right now, let's talk about it. Otherwise, let's jump into the governance and I do want to hear more about that, but we'll do that later.
Sure, let's talk about governance right now.
Okay, cool. Because I think the governance is all about who decides, who gets to decide, and that sets. Maybe we should just start here because this sort of sets the stage for everything else that happens. So, the way I envision this, or what I think would be the best, but again, really want to get your guys' feedback on this, is I've always envisioned the PSF as being a horizontal, or all open source, sort of being a very horizontal organization. Online communities tend to be very horizontal. And so the VIP Telegram channel, that's been around for a while. Most of you guys are familiar with that. There's a bot that only lets people speak in there if they've cryptographically proven their merit, which is a calculation based on how many tokens they hold. So I really want, one of the things I learned by talking to Nikhil Rogers is that the people who are impacted by the decisions should be the ones making the decisions. And so that's the idea, or the ethos behind this VIP Telegram channel, is the people with the most to lose should be the ones, who are most impacted by decisions should be the ones making the decision. So that's the whole idea behind the VIP channel, is to ramp up the signal, decrease the noise, and have the token holders be the ones that are making decisions that impact the value of the token.
So I do have a little bit to say about merit, because I've been thinking about this and wondering if merit can not only incorporate how long you've held tokens, but your interaction with the tokens in the economy. Mm-hmm. So, and that could be over time, because you don't want somebody to buy a bunch of tokens and sell a bunch of tokens, over and over to build that up. But people that are using these tokens to actually engage in business, they also have a vested interest in what happens. So maybe there could also be a component where it says, we've looked at your wallet and seen interaction of these tokens being used and exchanged, and this can also be a component of merit.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. It's just a matter of quantifying it.
Yeah, and I got the idea because we're talking about a authenticity type of token that is positive value that you give to somebody that you think is authentic. And I'm using very much the same governance ideas that you have at the PSF, just shifted a little bit. And we're in order to get into the governance, we're talking about, well, how do you do it? Do you burn tokens? Well, that doesn't make sense with something like this. Giving tokens away makes a lot more sense for achieving something like an NFT badge for governance. But then, could we then look at how you give away tokens and how you interact in the economy and say, well, this person is doing a lot of interaction with this. They obviously have vested interest in what's going on, and I look at that with the same thing with the PSF. If I'm using the DEX, if I may not have a lot of PSF tokens, but I may be buying and selling and using them on a regular basis, and therefore I am fundamentally impacted by any governance decisions. Yeah.
So one way I think we could incorporate that idea is POAPs. Where just to explain that so we're all on the same page. When Shapeshift DAO has a meeting, the very first thing they do is they throw a QR code up there, and everybody who's attending the meeting can scan that QR and get an NFT, and it's a proof of attendance protocol, POAP. And so if you attend a lot of these governance meetings, you accrue these POAP tokens, and so we could possibly do something like that where the merit calculation, is the way it is now, which is the number of tokens you hold times the number of days you've held them. But then there could be other NFT considerations. Like I was thinking, if you end up burning whatever amount we set to get on the minting council, that should automatically, get you access to the VIP channel, and that NFT should represent the number of tokens you burned. And then then we could add some sort of calculation for these POAPs where if your wallet has these, maybe each POAP counts for 100 PSF tokens or something like that. And so just by showing up and attending and participating in governance, even though you might not have a lot of financial skin in the game, you've got a lot of time invested. So that would be one way to quantify that.
Yeah.
I want to demonstrate one side when we in the in the free speech like time, because it's exactly on the topic. So I think it will illustrate very well. And it's about the NFT gated access to Telegram. So I will show after this.
That sounds great. I just wanted to let you know, Chris, that Shapeshift dropped using the POAPs because what happens, and it happens in a lot of discords with for DAOs right now, is that there are all sorts of people that all they want to do is collect POAPs, and they can be extremely disruptive and very hard to. It's very hard to be open and welcoming when people are there for ulterior motives. It's important to know that there's a downside to POAPs as well.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, because I've noticed that as well. They've really struggled with the I think some of that has to do with the actual POAP infrastructure that they're leveraging, whereas we could build that ourselves. But then there's the human element, which is people they kind of get crazy about collecting NFTs. Well,
when it comes to the governance thing too, because it is a governance and people are meeting together and they're talking and they're deciding things, there could be use cases where you say, all right, we have somebody that they don't have a lot of PSF, but we can see that they've transacted in a lot of PSF, right? And so maybe they don't have a lot of money, but they've been doing steady transactions the whole time. And that could be a use case where the governance council comes together and says, hey, this person has petitioned us to be on the governance board. What do we think? We'll put it up for a vote. We can actually look at their transaction history and see, for the past year, they've been steadily using and exchanging PSF tokens on the DEX and utilizing it with software they're building. And who is in favor of allowing them on the governance council in some capacity?
Yeah. I mean, another option that I've done that we haven't mentioned here is that other members can stake other members. I've done that with some of you. When I come across a developer that I like, oh man, I really want to hear your voice and have you participate here, but I know it's a big ask to get you to buy like 1,000 PSF tokens, but I have them and I'm not doing anything with them. So I will stake them and essentially give you the signed message that you need to verify. So that's totally an option where members who do have a lot of PSF can essentially make space for someone new who's not willing to commit.
Very true.
One thing, Chris, that you may find interesting is that one thing that we do with some of the hackathon prizes that we distribute out is actually through the SLP tokens. We only pay out to the token to the team holders and whatnot, but the tokens themselves, we actually just give it out to all the attendees who are either watching live or in person. And we just tell them, obviously 5 cents here and there to cover transaction fees, just send these tokens around to whoever you want. And then we'll just pay out the prize that we give out proportionate to however much each team has. So really, I feel like a lot of these quote unquote governance stuff really has to fit in some basic use case. So let's say you're talking about some development project that everyone's trying to work on and you're trying to coordinate everyone on, that would be a very different set of quote unquote governance than let's just say reaching out to other non-BCH related companies and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. That yeah, I really like the way the tokens were used in the hackathons, and that's almost like a spin on this POAP idea of like, oh, you know, you're here and you're attending. Like, here's some tokens to prove that you were here. Yeah. Well, okay. So just to zoom back out, the problem we're trying to solve here is the people who are impacted by the decisions should be the people who have the most to lose or gain from those decisions. So that's at a high level, that's what we're trying to achieve. So these are all this concept of merit and the use of tokens. We've discussed a lot of different ways to do it, but at the end of the day, the problem we're trying to solve is how do you make the people who have the most skin in the game and are affected the most by these decisions? How do you empower them, proportionately to when the decisions are made? And then so if we can nail that, if we can get that right, then there's essentially these other subcommittees that are answerable to this VIP channel. They've been getting created on an as needed basis. So right now there's 4 of them that have been like sort of clearly identified. One is I can go down and I can just basically talk to this image that's on the screen. The management has been largely me and David and another business administrator. And we just do the very minimum amount of management, like preparing proposals to be voted on, tallying the votes, updating the website, just all the boring administrative stuff. Somebody's got to do that. And so they answer to they do that at the direction of the VIP membership, mostly through this proposal process. So I guess just to get us all on the same page, most of you, I think, have participated in the proposal process. That's where we, in fact, I thought I had a section on here about proposals, but I'll just cover it real quick so I'm not scrolling. We've done this in the past where we have when something comes up like a budget or some new thing that we want to bring more tokens into existence to pay for. We create a proposal and we airdrop voting tokens like to the top 50 addresses or top 50 token holders by address. Again, this is using the sort of the simple merit idea. It's not incorporating some of these other ideas we just discussed. But those top 50, so it's like 10,000 voting tokens get airdropped to the top 50 addresses proportional to their merit. And then they send those tokens to either a yes address or a no address or an abstain address, and not sending the token counts as abstain. And so that's how we've made decisions in the past. It's been very effective. It's worked really well, and I think overall people have been really happy with the outcomes of that. And so that when I say like these committees take direction from the VIP channel, that's essentially how they're doing it. Is everybody who has the skin in the game gets a chance to vote proportionally, and then these subcommittees interact with that.
Is there a way to update where you're sending those tokens? Or I guess I could use my other wallet that I have PSF tokens in, because I've burned through so many I can't even remember which one you're sending them to. So
yeah, it's a lookup on the blockchain, so it's just based on the addresses holding tokens.
Okay.
And
So-
yeah, and the way so I mean, again, we just discussed different ways we could calculate merit, and I really want to have more discussion on that topic. But right, the way the merit calculation works right now is it's you can spend a PSF tokens from the same address as long as they don't basically it looks at an address and it'll go through the UTXO DAG, or basically your transaction history, and calculate the merit. So as long as you're using the same address to receive and send tokens, it'll all get calculated. It's when you move the tokens from one address to another, the merit essentially gets reset, because it's the quantity times the age in that address. And so if they move addresses, or you use something like an HD wallet that moves your tokens every time to a new address, then the merit doesn't accrue.
So it's not the age of the UTXO, because I was thinking it was
Right.
that. So okay, so as long as it's the same address, okay, fantastic.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that was based on feedback that I got from other token holders. Yeah. So there's the management, and then there's this minting council that we've been discussing. And really their job is essentially to be a placeholder for the things that we need centralized legal entities for. So they would hold the keys for bringing new tokens into existence, because that's safer than having it held by one single person that the state can apply pressure to. They would have this sort of remote control. I haven't talked about this very much, but having like remote control to shut down the token liquidity app remotely if enough minting council members got together to create a transaction to do that. What are some of the other ideas I had? But basically, anytime where there's sort of a legal like, is it okay for one person to be doing that, or should we distribute the trust and distribute the any potential legal liability? That's essentially what the minting council is there for. It's basically a stand-in for an LLC or some sort of corporate entity that would normally absorb that legal liability. And then, of course, there's the technical steering committee, and there's the COMCOM, which we've done. This is the technical steering committee, and then the COMCOM is the same idea, but for non-technical stuff, and that's sort of in hibernation right now. So those are the four main subcommittees that ultimately answer to the VIP channel. So this is how I envision governance. This is how, when someone asks this question, who gets to decide? This is the answer.
Well, and the VIP channel is the one you're submitting proposals to. It's the one people are voting on, and then it has sway over what these four branches are doing, essentially. Correct?
Right. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, so it's like if we decided to launch some initiative as a technical steering committee, we would talk about it in the VIP channel. And if there was a rough consensus, then a proposal would be formed. And then voting tokens would be airdropped. And then if the vote is yes, then the minting council would bring those tokens into existence, probably send them to a multi-sig wallet, which is under the control of the management. And then the management would execute on the actual of like distributing those tokens, as per the details in the proposal.
Okay.
And so that's essentially how it's been working.
Yeah. So minting council mints sends to a multi-sig with the management. Management deals with distribution according to what the proposal was.
Right. Yeah. So the only thing that's new here is the minting council. Is instead of me having sole, custody of the key to bring new tokens into existence, that would be held by a minting council, and that responsibility and legal liability would be decentralized among. And so one of the things I really want the minting council to be anonymous friendly, or anonymous first, is make it possible for someone to be a member of the minting council and remain anonymous. But of course, we have to think about civil protection in that case, so that people can't just spin up a bunch of anonymous accounts. There has to be some skin in the game, which is why being on the minting council would be a buy-in. It'd be a significant buy-in.
Yeah. And how do you get onto that council?
Well, right now, what I'm envisioning, and again, this is all subject to feedback from you guys and other people in the VIP channel, is that it'd probably be in the ballpark of 3,000 PSF tokens. You'd burn them, and then the minting council would issue you an NFT. And then that NFT becomes a homing beacon. That's how we can send encrypted email. I'm going to use the word email, but what it really is a encrypted message that the signal goes over the Bitcoin Cash blockchain, but effectively it's like email. And so any address that holds that NFT, like we can essentially send email to it. And some of you, I think, have used this, like message.fullstack.cash isn't functional right now, but that's how we were doing it. It is still functional in the PSF BCH wallet command line app. You can still do that today. And one of the things I want to add to that is an ability to hook up an email alert, so that if someone sends you one of these encrypted messages, you'll get an email alert saying, "Hey, you've got an encrypted message waiting for you." So I don't think I've mentioned that, but that's starting to get kind of high up in my to-do list.
And that's using the P2P IPFS stuff.
Yeah. So the message is encrypted using the public key from the blockchain, and then that encrypted message is uploaded to the pay-to-write database, and then the receiver there's a command you can run to check your messages, and then it'll download the encrypted messages and decrypt it with the private key from the Bitcoin Cash wallet. And so that all exists and is functional today in the command line wallet. The thing that I want to add is you could have your wallet sort of run in the background, like on a computer or Raspberry Pi or something, and it'll just every 15 minutes or whatever, it'll check to see if it has a new message. And if it finds one, it'll shoot you an email alert just saying, "Hey, you've got an encrypted message waiting for you."
Nice.
Yeah, I think it would make it much more functional. And then again, this is all sort of for the Minting Council. This is how I envision the Minting Council functioning, is to get on the Minting Council, you burn some PSF tokens, you get this NFT, which makes you part of the Minting Council. And then you can start then you have this responsibility to participate in the Minting Council, which means your keys get rotated the keys will get rotated every quarter at a minimum. If you don't meet for any other reason, you'll meet at least once a quarter. And that coordination will happen through this encrypted email. And then when it comes time to actually meet, so part of what I've been there's so much to explain. Part of what I've been working on is this process for this actual multi-signature minting. And so everyone we'd use the PSF BCH wallet, command line wallet. And there's a command I've created to essentially send the Minting Council would pick one aggregator, one member of the Minting Council to be the aggregator. And then each member of the Minting Council would send an encrypted message with their signature to the aggregator. And then the aggregator would aggregate all the signatures and create and broadcast the actual transaction that brings the new tokens into existence. And through that process, the keys get rotated. You create a new wallet. Everybody ends up with a new wallet, and then the cycle starts over again. Each member has their own key that nobody else knows about. And then you all get together in the next event, and the whole thing takes place again. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well.
I'm getting it mostly. Are you saying that after the minting occurs, I need to make a new wallet, or the new wallet will be generated? And then what happens to the NFT in the old wallet? Do I need to transfer it to the new wallet? And
yeah, so it's this is part of what's still being worked on. So none of this is set in stone, but the workflow I've got right now, and if anybody wants to check it out, I'll just pull it up just so you can see it. But it's a fork of the PSF BCH wallet, PSF multi-sig minting, and there's the master branch, and then most of the work I'm doing is in the CT unstable branch. And there are these two commands. There's multi-sig mint and multi-sig send spend file. So each member of the Minting Council will execute this. We all coordinate over encrypted email, and we pick an aggregator, which is an address. And everybody who's not the aggregator executes this multi-sig send spend file. And so what that does is you give it the wallet that has the current key, and you give it a new wallet. And what it does is it sends an encrypted message to the aggregator with the private key of the old wallet, and then the public address of the new wallet, which is used to create the new multi-sig wallet that's going to hold the new minting baton. And then the aggregator runs this multi-sig mint, and all this data gets encrypted and uploaded to the pay-to-write database. And so the aggregator runs this multi-sig mint, and it goes and it gets all this data that's been encrypted just for them on the PayToWrite database, puts it all together, and it'll either succeed or fail. There will either be enough signatures or there won't be enough signatures. And if there is, it'll mint the new tokens and create a new multi-sig wallet based on the public key of all the new wallets that each member sent in. And so at the end of this, the new tokens are minted, the minting baton moves to a new multi-sig wallet. Each member of the minting council has their own key that's part of that wallet. And it sets up like if there's 10 members, then it's a 5 of 10 address. If there's 3 members, it's a 2 of 3. So it always tries to hit like half plus 1 is how many keys you have. So if say a member of the council, doesn't send their info in, they can still get in on the next key rotation. We only need to have 50% participation.
So if for the member of the council, they're going to use the message send spend file to send it to the aggregator address. That aggregator address aggregates all of those files and then launches the mint. And when the mint is launched, a new wallet is created, the mint baton is transferred to it. Do the tokens stay in the old wallet, or are they also transferred to the new wallet?
They would be transferred to an address that would be in the proposal. So like the assumption is that this would only happen after the proposal. So
we got a lot of things going on here where the tokens are created and sent, the minting baton is then sent to a new wallet. Does the person on the minting council have to create a new wallet and send that new address in for so that when everything happens, it then sends out the new keys?
Everything happens automatically. It's just a matter of those.
Okay.
Of really, it's one command. Everybody but the aggregator runs one command, and then the aggregator runs one command, and then everything's done.
Seems like Edward Snowden needs to be involved, just like he was with the Zcash ceremony. Because somehow he shows up as a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, I apologize, guys. This is a lot of ground to cover. I was hoping to just sort of abstract a lot of these details away so we could just focus on the high level stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
We haven't had a meeting on this low level stuff, and but that's basically where I'm at with it, and it's still a work in progress. Like what I want to do is do a fake token and go through some of this exercise with you guys so that we can all have just a much more tactile understanding of how this is supposed to work. And it'll also shine a spotlight on the flaws.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Plus, it would feel like we could do it a couple of times, whoever is involved, to make sure that it feels like it's less chance for flaw.
Well, and I do really like the multi-sig option. And I think it's going to, like we've been talking about DAOs and where DAOs are and what's happening. I don't think we've seen what a DAO will be or anything like that. We're experimenting here and figuring out, but I do like having a multi-sig wallet for being able to create or destroy tokens and having a governance council to decide, how are we going to do this? Do we need more tokens? Do we not need more tokens? And I think this can apply in a lot of other business use cases. So exactly. I'm very excited to see it happen. And I definitely want to jump on and practice with you guys. So
yeah, and so there's and then once we get this process polished a little bit, there's a lot of things we can do with it. So besides just bringing new tokens into existence, we could do an op return remote control for, say, the token liquidity app or the DEX. So I assume this is the problem I'm running up against, is like there's a lot of really valuable things we can do, but it requires centralization, and so this minting council is the solution to that. So for instance, the token liquidity app as it exists now, instead of me having sole control over it, I would like the minting council to essentially have remote control where in an emergency, they could issue a transaction that would shut the app down and drain the funds to another multi-sig wallet. I'd like us to build a bridge between the PSF token and the USDC stablecoin on Avalanche. But that's a bridge is a centralized entity, and so that same thing would apply with the minting council, where the app could just be there running, but in the event of an emergency, the minting council could shut it down and drain the funds if enough council members got together to issue one of these remote control transactions. So yeah. So anyways,
Sam, you're muted, man.
Oh.
I was going to say, I've been looking at this cash script. It's called the Mecenas contract. So basically, it was made to prevent exit scams. So the way it works, the person sending the money to say they want a subscriber, or they want to make sure whoever's making promises doesn't just take the money and leave. They're responsible for making the script hash, and the contract itself is made in a way that you can only withdraw a certain amount, like maybe monthly, but ultimately the person who sends the funds is the one that makes a kind. There's so much to it, but
I think if I'm remembering right, that contract was created. The use case that contract was designed
recurring
for
payments.
Recurring payments. Yeah. And see, that's definitely something to consider.
I think the flip starter contract is also available, which is sort of, I think it's a kind of similar, but it works in a way where we kind of get how it works, right? Like you have one party that
Mm-hmm. You don't need smart contract in our case. Like
right.
How to see? It's a little how to see exclusive this multi-sig flow that Chris is explaining, and having a smart contract, because in our case there will be this aggregator guy which will accumulate all of the signatures, create a transaction and send it. So in this case you don't need some smart contract to do this thing. Of course you can automate it, but like a next step, maybe the first one is just to have this done, I think. And for this one you still don't need like smart contracts. It will just get all the signatures, start this file, it will sign the transaction and send it. It's like, no need from contract at all.
Yeah, and I thank you for saying that, Stoyan, because that's sort of the approach I'm taking, is like really start with the fundamentals, like a multi-sig wallet. That's really all we need. And then humans, and like let's get a process down that works, and then we'll look for opportunities to automate it and remove the human element as much as possible. Okay, so we've covered the governance here. We've covered sort of who gets to decide and how is all this stuff organized. So I think maybe with that we can go back to the token economics. Now that we have a better grasp of the minting council. So you guys have all interacted with the token liquidity app. You're kind of familiar with how that works. It's like a vending machine or an automated market maker. And we've discussed this nuclear option a few times, but just to get us all on the same page, basically, I point out some of these sort of catastrophic failure modes that could happen. And the solution to all of them is the nuclear option, which is we just create a new PSF token and we airdrop it to all the existing addresses, and we switch all the open source software to use the new token. And I think that would probably take at most maybe 2 days to execute. So in the event of any of these, like any possible like catastrophic event around the token, that's the process that we follow. And so with that understanding, this is the new stuff I really want to cover with you guys is in this diagram. This, I don't know if I have this put together yet correctly, but this is based on a lot of reading and thinking and discussing where you guys might have seen this outer loop before, which is how I've envisioned the PSF token working, where we have an application at the top, like say the DEX or a bridge or fullstack.cash, which is providing infrastructure as a service. So some software as a service application that consumes tokens and produces, does something for the person who fed it tokens. So like a vending machine. There's all this really boring stuff involved with software development: unit tests, writing documentation, reviewing bug reports, doing code reviews. These are extrinsically motivated. Like these are why developers get paid money, is because these things are difficult and they're boring. And so what I really want to do here is draw a bright line between intrinsically motivated developers, which are doing things, from a place of creativity. I think a lot of us here that's why we write software is it just scratches an intellectual itch. And we're intrinsically motivated. And that's primarily what's always driven open source software. But then there's this whole side of it where you need extrinsic motivation. And this is what the book Working in Public talks about is how do we collaborate on code, how to think about code. It really drills into this comparison and contrast between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. And so where the PSF token comes in is we need to be able to pay developers to do all this boring stuff, because otherwise it just doesn't get done. And that's where most open source projects fall over. And so if we pay some developers to do that, they can then cash in the PSF token for BCH or whatever and get paid. That's what we've done with Daniel and Gary in the past. And then the idea is on the left side that that improves the software. And so hopefully we're getting more users, we're creating value for the users, and the users, that increases the amount of cash flow. Essentially, more users are getting tokens, have more reason to get tokens and spend the tokens and use the tokens and consume that SaaS software. And then in the middle there is a tighter circle of these intrinsically motivated developers who are just, maybe they're an entrepreneur who's just trying to solve their own business case, or maybe they are a paid developer working for a business who has a culture of giving back, and they're paid to give back, like most of the contributors to Linux fit that description. Or maybe they're just, doing it as creative expression, or maybe they're trying to just do it through education. Those are probably the top 4 reasons of intrinsic motivation. And so open source projects, this book Working in Public really talks about just these social dynamics and the problems that a lot of open source projects run into. And so I think we can leverage both of these, where I think we're all here because we're intrinsically motivated. This software is scratching some sort of itch that we want scratched. And whether we're just consuming it or we're contributing to it, in addition to consuming to it, we're pretty much all intrinsically motivated. And so I imagine these as sort of 2 loosely coupled flywheels, where like if one starts spinning, then the other one starts to spin too. And then if that one starts spinning up, it makes the other one spin faster. And so what this is it's a value loop. So every time we go around the loop, one of those loops, we've increased the amount of value. And then on that outer loop, it monetizes the value and then reinvests the value. And at the end of the day, that SaaS app, whichever loop you take, should be a little bit better when you've completed the loop. So this is the theory, the token economic theory. And it remains to be seen. But we haven't really had. We've had the token liquidity app, but we haven't had a lot of the monetization side of the value. We haven't had a lot of success yet in monetizing the value. And I think that's really where like the DEX and the bridges come in, that box at the bottom. We know that people want to trade tokens. We know that people are excited about NFTs and trading NFTs. We know that people want stable coins, and probably the best way to do that is to build a bridge to the best stable coin we can find, or bridges to multiple stable coins. And a lot of that is going to require centralized control of some of this stuff. And that's where the Minting Council comes in. That's the thing that we've been lacking. The things that we haven't, it's just too risky for me as an individual to build a bridge between the PSF token and USDC. It's too risky for me as an individual to throw up a DEX that everybody in the world can use, even if it's trustless and atomic. The fact that Chris Troutner is running this webpage, like, that's an attack vector. And so that's where the Minting Council comes in. That's why we haven't been able to do these things, and that's why we haven't really monetized the PSF token yet.
That's
Fantastic.
understandable.
Yeah, I'm absolutely. And Chris, you shouldn't be an attack vector, not for your own sake or for the PSF Foundation's sake.
Well, good, but so that's the theory. I'm really looking for flaws in the theory, and they might not appear until we actually get into this a little bit deeper.
I think the idea of using it as utility is definitely a good one. You've been using it as a utility for a while, and there's a big difference between people that put out a token and say, we're going to the moon, and people that put out a token and say, this is going to help facilitate the use case of business across many different cultures and economies.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little, how to say, it's not a flaw, but most of these use cases that you're talking here are about the burning tokens. So the amount will be reduced and then the price will increase. But for example, if you want to provide services for token gated access, for example, it will be holding these tokens, but this will not help with the price so much because, yeah, they will just stay there. They will not be burned. So,
yeah, so that's, I'm glad you brought that up, Stoyan, because it's a little hand wavy here. So the examples I'm drawing from is around the token liquidity app. And even if we end up phasing out the token liquidity app and going more towards the DEX, I think we're still going to have an automated market maker that plays the current role that the token liquidity app plays in terms of keeping a loose peg between the PSF token and BCH. And so right now, examples of this burning, which happens is anytime someone uses wallet.fullstack.cash, there is a 2,000 Satoshi output. And so that goes, like, the person doesn't actually interact with the PSF token. They're just doing a normal Bitcoin Cash transaction. But that 2,000 Satoshis goes to the token liquidity app with an instruction to purchase and burn that amount of PSF token. And same thing goes with the DEX. When you interact with the DEX, there's sort of like a donation that goes in there. And then, of course, you're also consuming PSF tokens directly in order to write to the pay-to-write database. So these are examples of consuming and burning tokens, even though the end user is not even aware that might be what they're doing.
Makes sense.
All right, well, I can see we're kind of fading here. We're getting on an hour. Let me go through this quickly and see if there's anything else that I wanted to really get your guys' feedback on, and then I'd like to hear more of what Stoyan had to say about using tokens. We talked about the Minting Council. I think we're all familiar with the councils. I've got links here to different codes of conducts, contribution guides, moderations policy. These all need to be refined. Most of them are just copied and pasted from the Node.js Foundation because that's what a lot of this stuff is based on.
I want to mention one other thing is the Bitcoin payments module stuff that's being worked on. Somehow, there is now physical access to things that once they finish that, you pay to this thing and it takes an action in the physical world that I don't know how we would use that yet, but I feel like there is a big piece of it that has really just not been explored as we're going forward. I think that would be worth keeping in mind. And shout out to Aaron working on that.
Yeah, I think we're all following Aaron's work on that, and we're all pretty excited for him.
I think somebody need to talk more with Aaron, because they start to, how to say, to make a little like chaotic stuff there. Like they're going for the SOP tokens, but in the same time, like they asked me before to create a contract for them. Like, I don't know, they like, it need to be a little more like, I don't know, somebody need to tell him, okay, SOP tokens, BCH, you can do this, and there's no smart contracts. Like,
yeah, it's a little scattered. He's if I had to have any criticism for Aaron, it's just that he might be chasing too many opportunities, but I appreciate that he's being open-minded there. I think they're really focused on the hardware. They have, the relay and the display and the microcontroller that they're using, and because they're using a microcontroller, they have very serious limitations. I mean, they have it configured to use full stack.cache, which is great because that's probably the way to get the most amount of options for a little microcontroller. But and it's also great that so he's got one. The original use case was washing machines, laundromats. That was the original use case, and that's a good reason for going with the hardware that they've used. But then you start getting into like point of sale terminals, and that's you have to be much more flexible with that use case. It's not as cut and dry as vending machines or laundromats. So a lot of what he talks about is he's kind of scattered because he's just likes talking about it, and he likes talking to other people about, oh, what else could we do with this thing, which is good. But I think like eventually once he gets like sort of model 1 out, probably a lot of that hardware needs to be attached to a Raspberry Pi rather than a microcontroller, so that they can have a lot more flexibility in terms of, whether they can execute smart contracts or maybe leverage smart BCH instead of BCH.
Aaron says in the chat, thanks for the mention. I have to learn about both. Only doing it to learn about it. I can't learn by reading well. I have to learn by doing. A lot of us are that way, Aaron.
Yeah, you're on the right track, Aaron. I mean, what you're doing is good, and we're all cheering for you.
Yeah, I honestly think that what he's doing can be fundamental in adoption of what the PSF is doing in the long run, especially as the use case of tokens, like for instance, coffee shops, ice cream parlors, farmers markets. If there is also a payment mechanism that allows people to spend those tokens and redeem those tokens, man, that's, all the pieces are in play.
Well, it closes the economic loop. I mean, I'm following his work because I want to build a vending machine out here, and I've got several people on the island that are like, they're always asking me, Chris, when are you going to build the vending machine and start the Decatur dollar?
It's so funny because like I've put together using Chris. I didn't realize you were the guy doing it, but these I made some SLP tokens and I put together a whole wallet system, but there was no mechanism to finish that loop. So what you're doing, I mean, there's just so much capabilities now that this stuff is coming to fore that I'm excited about it, and I'm glad we are like bringing it up again.
Yeah.
Well, and then you take the multi-sig wallet and you take, say, a farmer's market, say you're a local co-op farmer's market, and you decide, hey, we're going to use this token for the year. We're going to create a 2022 farmer's market token, right? And we are going to see how it goes. And so you have that multi-sig wallet. The people that are part of that can mint that and then distribute that in some fashion. And now people can use that when they go to the farmer's market. And maybe they co-op with other farmers markets around and say, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea if all the farmers markets in Omaha were able to redeem this token? We could pre-sell this token and pay for a lot of our infrastructure right off the bat.
All the software building is composable to be able to be reused for these purposes, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
So the last thing I want to cover with you guys here is just the milestones and the roadmap. I've got just some milestones we've already hit, and then the roadmap was something I kind of iterated on in the Telegram channel and got some good feedback from the membership. And I tried to just sort of categorize these. So I've got them broken down into the cache stack, the DEX, the pay to write database, the bridges, and the administration. And I won't go into these because I think it's better if we do that offline. But basically what I'm trying to just show is this is much for me as it is for everyone else. It's just sort of like, here's where we are, here's where we're going. If you want to pitch in, you know, if any of these things sort of strike your fancy and you want to pitch in again as an intrinsically motivated developer, maybe you have your own ulterior motives for wanting to see one of these things happen. You know, yeah, pitch in. So that's mainly the purpose of this roadmap. It's not so much to sell anybody like, oh, here we're gonna go here. It's just like, hey, if you're a developer or an entrepreneur and you want these things, we want these things. Let's work together. So yeah, go ahead and just study that in your own time. And if any of you want to talk about that at greater detail, definitely let me know. And yeah, community support. You know, I threw down the $100 an hour. If anybody wants paid support, that's more like just a fishing thing. Like, okay, well, there's a number to start a discussion with. And then I don't even know how we'd execute on that yet, but at least we could start talking with it. And that's pretty much, you know, what I wanted to share with you guys. There's a whole bunch of other stuff on NFTs that we could talk about, but I'll open up the floor. What do you guys? Should we end it here? Should we let Stoyan talk about some of his stuff? Should we talk about the DEX and NFTs? I haven't even shown you guys the NFT I have up on the DEX for sale.
We need more time.
I'm really glad that we were able to cover that. I mean, honestly, some of the feedback you guys just gave me in this meeting is absolute gold.
I think Stoyan had that thing you wanted to show.
Yeah, you want to show your thing, Stoyan?
It's interesting about the NFTs maybe that you're talking about. I would think to fit my stuff in 10 minutes maybe. So sure. If you think.
But yeah, maybe we'll just save the NFT stuff for the next meeting.
Okay. So
because we could probably do an hour on that.
Yeah, it's just how to see. Can I share my screen maybe?
You should be able to. I just enabled it.
Okay, so I hope you can see this.
Yeah.
Okay, so just wanted to introduce one interesting site. It's named guild.xyz. And it's like, it's an open source. They have like a GitHub repository and everything. So you can create your own like site. But with what is this thing? It's like a very nice graphical interface for creating a token gated access to many services. In the moment, mostly it's like Discord and Telegram. So I created one private like Telegram chat, and in order to go there, you need to buy a ticket. And how is this going? When you go to this site, you need to connect your wallet, and they support a lot of blockchains. You can see our friend Avalanche is here, which is great. So when you do this, you can create your own guild. And when you create your guild, the interesting stuff is there's a very, very, very nice interface for the rules, which will allow you how to go to your channel on Discord or Telegram. So, for example, see, now you can have like or and or whatever like stuff. And what they're supporting is like, for example, token holders. We are talking now about the token holders or holding an NFT. And you can exclusively allow some members to be like whitelisted. And you have a great like form for this one. So you can see the integration. They support our old friend Unlock protocol, which what helps us this one, it can create very easy this kind of NFTs. Like you can make them like you just create one key here. And in my case, it's infinite, but it can be for 1 month or for whatever. You can put a price. And one more great stuff is like, you can integrate it, but you can create it immediately now. You just tell it, okay, I want after the buying the ticket, you to go to this guild page. And you generate this address.
Really?
Yeah, and I will just copy this now in the root channel or in PCF. I'm not sure where to put this, but let's put it in the root sub channel. So if you go to this URL,
Okay.
it will present you with interface, very simple one. So you just go here, buy your ticket for 1 Matic, and after you purchase it, it will send you to this guild page. And it will check for you, how to see, are this requirement like,
Nice.
okay, do you have in this case NFT? And if you are, this button will be enabled, you click on it and you can go to the Telegram channel.
Awesome.
But you can have this for 5 or 10 minutes. You can have a gate, how to see, token gate with any price, any conditions, very easy to use. Like, I don't know. And as I mentioned, this supports so many blockchains. And I'm not sure, can these rules be so flexible to have, for example, like, I don't know, like REST request to something, so we can deal with BCH in some way.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So what I'm wondering, or at least from observing this, it looks like it's essentially a paywall. So
yeah,
once you get the link to the it's not actually restricting access to the Telegram channel, right? It's just restricting access to the link that takes you to the Telegram channel.
No, it's restricting the access because this one is combined with a Telegram bot.
Oh, okay.
So it sends you an invitation link, and when you click on the link, it's a like unique link just for you, and you can go to the channel. So yeah, you can try it. I will return your money back after this if you want. It's 1 Matic in the moment. I just wanted to prevent like bots, but yeah, so it's combined. And when you first create a guild, there's like help. You can click and it will show, it will help you to add the bot, because with Telegram bot, you need to know the ID of the group, and see, it's a big problem for everybody to figure it. But you can see when I join this guild bot, it tell me like, okay, your group is this one, just add this to this interface. So everything is very, very well automated, and you can have this token based access like for 10 minutes. It's like pam, and you're ready. So yeah, it's a great tool in the moment to have like temporary token driven access to Discord or Telegram channels, like for example, VIP channel. But yeah, for now, it's just on this EVM compatible blockchains. So I was thinking maybe some way we can do this, like, I don't know, in this integration stuff.
Well, this is really interesting to me, because one of the things I've been really thinking of, or part of the reason why I'm put everything together that we just covered, that psfoundation.info site, is like, I want to start really identifying and focus on things that matter, which I think for us is the DEXs and the bridges and the minting council. And I want to start leveraging as much as we can so that we don't have to create everything for ourselves. Right. So if we could, I'd really love to not maintain that VIP bot anymore. And so if we could leverage this and achieve what we need to achieve, which is increasing signal and decreasing noise,
then that's great, because that's a lot of code we don't have to maintain anymore. And that's why I spent a couple hours this morning really digging into Matrix and trying to see if, asking myself, like, what's the problem I'm trying to solve, and could we use this to solve that problem? Yeah. So I really like this story, and I'm going to go check that out myself, because if we could reduce membership in the VIP channel to simply, like, we could just create a very simple web app faucet where it's like you sign a message to prove your merit, and then if it hits a threshold, the bot gives you one of those tokens that lets you into the channel. Then bam, then we've reduced the amount of code we have to maintain to a very, very, like one file.
Yeah, and they're pretty, like, as you see, maybe there is a lot of project that are already using this, so it seems pretty legit for me.
Mm.
Like, I don't know, hundreds of guilds already.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So,
That's great.
Yeah, this was everything from me. We can go back to the NFTs if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so this might work for the minting council too. We could have a separate chat room that's just for minting council members. And of course, if it's Discord and Telegram, that kind of defeats. I wanted to make it like as anonymous friendly as possible. Matrix is kind of there. They require an email for sign up. It's just part of like whatever server you run. And so it's not that hard to come up with an anonymous email, but it's just one more hoop to jump through. So yeah, something to think about. Definitely, that's valuable input there, Stoyan.
So it currently doesn't support Smart BCH, but since it's all open source, I mean, not that we'd fork that because that's way too much. But but it does look like to support Avalanche. So I don't know, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, Avalanche is so fully featured right now, and they've got so much money. I'm really worried about Smart BCH. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been following it, but they had like a massive outage like 3 days ago, and no one knows what happened. Like only like whoever the head guy, developer, he's the only one who knows, and he still hasn't told anybody. And like
there was a thing on it, like they were all pointing at the same Bitcoin D, and when that Bitcoin D went, I read about it just before this a little bit, but I don't think it's fully described,
Yeah, I saw IMU name like asking like, when are we going to get the postmortem? And then it sounds like one of the 3 validators has dropped out, so now there's only 2 validators validating all the transactions on the network. So that's one step away from centralized.
Chris, you was mentioning something in the in the agenda about the the BCH upgrade, that it was go well, and so something.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I think most of those other agenda items will push out to the next meeting, but just the May 15th upgrade happened on both Bitcoin Cash and eCash. There were 0 issues. Everything went great on both chains. Okay. That was really all there was to. No news is good news on that front.
This will not change everything on the upper level, right? Like JavaScript libraries or something.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, basically the 2 upgrades that went into Bitcoin Cash will have 0 impact to everything that we're doing.
Can, however, be some like one of the proposal was about the group, how they call it when you can inspect the output, I think, or the input.
the native introspection. So the two upgrades was going from 32-bit integers to 64-bit integers. This is on Bitcoin Cash, not eCash. And then the native introspection. And so those 2 changes really affect cache script and any sort of script language. And so I'm watching the general protocols channel, because those 2 were really stopping general protocols from, if you guys remember, the any hedge, which is a really interesting idea of it's sort of a totally different approach to stable coins, where you create a smart contract essentially on the Bitcoin Cash chain, and someone can hedge and someone can long. And so you need 2 people to take both sides of this trade. And it's usually a 3x, where it's like if the price of Bitcoin goes up, and it's a 24-hour contract. So if the price of Bitcoin goes up, the person who's longing gets 3x leverage. and the person who's hedging will just get the same purchasing power that they got at the end, regardless of how the price changed. And so it's, a little black magic is how they make those two things balance out. But that's the idea behind the any hedge.
Yeah, I lost a lot
contract.
of money there. Maybe like $50 or something. Because because it's very restricted. It's exactly 24 hours. And when there is like changing the price, it's even not exactly 24 hours. It's until it's validated, like the next like transaction, something. So sometimes it's just taking 26 hours or more.
Yeah.
And I'm losing
because
all
we're
of
waiting for
my
a block of
tokens.
confirmation. Yeah, it's pretty clunky. And so these changes were largely being pushed by general protocols because they were bumping up against the size limitations. And then the native introspection opens up a whole like array of new things that you can do. And so and Roscoe Callis in particular, I worked with him at bitcoin.com and he created Cash Script. And so I'm really watching to see what he does next now that these changes have gone into effect, because he's the guy who's like the most like knowledgeable as to like what you can do with these changes. And he's essentially, I don't know if he's officially the lead developer of general protocols, but that's how I view him. And so I'm just waiting to see what they do with these changes, but it'll mostly affect Cash Script, people who want to write Cash Script scripts. All right, well, guys, should we wrap it up? It's been a great meeting. It's been about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I've learned a lot, and I would say, do we want to put some deadlines on wrapping up final decisions on some of this stuff? Because we can kick that stuff around for a while and never make a deadline. Like, do we want to have determined the mechanisms of the minting council by X date?
Yeah, I don't think we're at a point right now to make those sorts of decisions. It's still really the thing that's driving me is, it's right there in the roadmap. I've got these contractual obligations with Ava Labs and the eCash GNC. So that's really the stick that's goading me along right now. I really want to get those done. And I also like, as far as the minting council goes, a lot of that code with the minting is it's a sandbox right now. It's an early alpha. So I would love to get some of my obligations wrapped up with those other organizations and get the DEX in a little bit of a better place, just functionally. And then yes, I really want to focus on the minting council, and probably the first step in that is actually doing a practice run and with you guys, and just so we all get a feel for the process. But I'm happy with how it's shaping up. I'm happy that I've managed to get it into like one command. That's easy for people to, you guys are all capable of running one command.
Well, I just want to say how amazing you've been, so productive in your vacations that I've never been that productive on any of my vacations. So I just was amazed at all the stuff you thought and written while on vacation.
One command, that's kind of hard for Stoyan.
Yeah, might not be enough commands.
He likes a lot of commands.
No, maybe we have. Yeah, it's about the commands. It's difficult to type, but we have different like ideas on what is vacation. Maybe to start first with, like I don't stay around computers during vacations because it's very
well. No, we were like burning wood and like chopping down trees, and I'd have this idea and I'd be thinking about it while I was working. And like, hold on, I got to go write this down. And I'd run into the tent and like fire up the laptop and write it down.
So Sam Rock, what does your shirt say? Taxation?
Yeah, I was going to call that out. I love it.
The taxation of
there we go. Right.
Rebellion.
That's awesome. I want that shirt.
I got a couple of these.
All right. Well, we got to call it for the YouTube live stream here, and
let's go ahead and wrap it up. Anybody who's stuck with the live stream this long, thank you, and anybody who has stuck with the recording this long, thank you.
I'm sure Aaron's there. I watched them talking about the smart BCH chat. I think he's talking about whatever was going on. So
Yeah, I'll check the YouTube comments here right before I show. Oh yeah, there's quite a few comments here.
and Andrew was saying stuff. Andrew, we're all jealous that you're down in that nice weather in Mexico or wherever you are. So
Yeah.
wherever the world Andrew is now, he could be anywhere.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and